in India, to be in sync with this, we have the opportunity to develop the National Voluntary Guidelines, as you well know.
Yeah.
Principle 5 is precisely the human rights principle, and if you read through that principle, if anyone does, Sanjay, you will find that it is aligned with what the world is saying on human rights. So now, in the localization of the context that you asked about lastly, three things. I think one, that if you've spoken already with Puran Pandey, he will have told you the work being done by the UN Global Compact Network in India through the CEO Forum on Human Rights, of which I'm part as an advisor. And this is a CEO Forum, so it's wonderful that 20 CEOs of India have put representation into a 2-year project, and Narayan Murthy is chairing this, to develop in 2 years exactly case studies and absolute demonstration by these 20 companies, and more we hope will join, on human rights. So there'll be a number of things, Sanjay. Yes, there will be case studies, there will be examples of companies developing policies that are specific to human rights. There will be, I hope, from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, IICA, some more training modules on human rights at different levels. And if I can just conclude this small point, that I'm involved in the concluding part of a nearly 2-year-long piece of work directed and funded by the European Commission through their Trade and Industry Group, and this was actually to develop guidance on these UN guiding principles for the first time for 3 sectors of industry. So the ones that have been selected is ICT, which is very relevant to us, oil and gas, and wider extractives, again, which has a bearing on many, many developing countries, including ours, and manpower agencies and recruiting agencies who deal with basically labor contractors and such like, which again have a huge bearing on poverty, migration, labor issues, etc. So, and there is a separate guidance being developed for small medium enterprise, which looks after the supply chain issues that we haven't yet talked about, because human rights is alive and well and needs to be looked at there. When I say human rights, I don't just mean not doing harm and not violating human rights. I mean companies have an obligation even to support and to promote human rights in certain contexts. So this work that's being done by the EU is obviously in a European context, but we will bring this to India. It'll be in the public domain by March and April, and we will look at the tools, we will look at the available products, the guidances that are globally available, and adapt through the CEO Forum and other fora in India appropriate materials to continue at least pushing this part of the corporate responsibility agenda, which is still new. Even globally, companies are challenged with it, but I see no reason that Indian companies can do less than display leadership in this. I think we are a natural country for human rights, given our democratic society, civil society, media, and judiciary, etc., etc. And the fact that the governments have endorsed it now. So I think things are looking up, Sanjay. It's a good time for, particularly my message to NGOs will be to use the fact that their complaint about companies doing greenwash and whitewash and not really serious of what does the CSR mean, and valid concerns where corporations have not behaved in any particular sector up to the mark. This is now a challenge to challenge them on human rights and support them on human rights where this is required in terms of engaging partnerships that are rights-based partnerships, for example. I'll give you an example, Sanjay, in conclusion. I mean, what are the human rights issues in our countries today? Let's take one straight off. The whole issue of affirmative action, non-discrimination, and Dalits. This is not a political issue, this is a human rights issue equally. And how does it apply to corporations? So you've seen the journey from what... Now, it's not just about reservations, this is a discussion about human rights of Dalits and what corporations can do to promote them and certainly not violate them. And it's a massive topic, affirmative action, non-discrimination, and requires human rights guidance, human rights tools, so that the debates are not polarized into reservation versus non-reservation. So I do think that the human rights approach has a lot of relevance and bearing to a variety of human rights issues, women's rights, children's rights in India. With the new legislation on child labor, this is path-breaking. corporations have to take this on board and see how it affects their operations and to cooperate with making sure their supply chains do not have child labor, but go a step further, get those children back into childhood and to school. And not through philanthropy.
Now,